Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Conversations with Black Women Coach. And this morning, I am talking to Bev Barnes, who I'm very excited to have on to talk about her work, her coaching work. And Bev, thank you for joining me, first of all. It's really nice to get to talk to you again. It was really a pleasure to meet you a couple months ago, and it's really great to have you on. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm a master life coach. I'm a coach mentor and a coach trainer. So what I do is I created a roadmap. It's called the Souls Calling Roadmap.
Mhm.
And I created a process called the Souls Calling Coaching Process. So what I do is I train coaches through
Mhm.
that process, really to help them to learn the tools of the trade,
Mhm.
so to speak. And I also work with people who feel that they have a calling really to heal or help or guide or shift something in the world and create their own work. And
Mhm.
I work with women to do that work.
What inspired you to coach and do this specific work?
I think it's my own story, really. My own story. So I was always dissatisfied at work.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was completely dissatisfied. I didn't know what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be when I grew up. Nothing seemed to exist. People were telling me things like, be a doctor, blah, blah, blah. But
Mhm.
it didn't light me up. I didn't know what lit me up. I actually didn't know me. I'd spent
Mhm.
most of my life trying to fit in, doing whatever everyone wanted me to do. I grew up in very much a white society. I was the only Black person. Me and my sister were Canadian. So I
Mhm.
was in Montreal and there were no Black people when I was growing up anyways. So I fit in. And and I think that what I've learned is when you spend all your time trying to fit in, you don't know what makes you stand out.
Right.
So I didn't know me. I didn't know
Mhm.
who I was. So I graduated from university. So my parents were like, you've got to go to university, be
Mhm.
independent.
Mhm.
Love that from my dad because he was like, never be dependent upon a man. That was
Yes.
my
Yes.
father was a feminist in
Mhm.
the like way back when. So I just was dissatisfied. And when I heard about coaching, was when it just began. Like it wasn't really a career.
Mhm.
And I remember I read about it in Time magazine, and I'd been searching and looking and thinking, and I had this angst, this deep angst about wanting to do something. And I heard about coaching, and I was like, somebody else brought me the magazine, and they said, Bev, I think this is what you've been talking about, because I've been talking to people, right, in the
Mhm.
workplace, hiding, doing my job, and talking to people
Mhm.
about my dissatisfaction. And so somebody said, I think this is what you're been talking about. That's how I discovered coaching. And I thought, that's it, because I knew I didn't want to be a therapist.
Mhm.
Um, I just knew that I didn't want to be really dealing consistently with people's problems. But I did know that I wanted to help people move towards something. And so when I heard that there was a profession, I decided to move towards it.
Okay.
I decided to move toward, I was in Canada, so like there were no coaches.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I actually did my own training program. I did a master's degree in psychoeducation and brief and strategic therapy, and did graduate work in career development. And I kind of created my own practice
Mhm. In
in a
your
way.
own lane, which is, I think, is
In
really cool.
in
Yeah.
my own lane. Of course, then I got downsized. Like bang, I got downsized. And
Well,
and
I always say the universe has a way of putting you where you need to be. And so maybe and that's probably was the best thing that could have happened ultimately, right? Even though it didn't feel like it at the time, I'm
oh,
sure.
it absolutely was. Actually, to be honest, I was praying to be downsized. I was one of those.
Oh, I know what you mean. I know
I
what
was
you
praying
mean.
to be said, please be downsized and give me a package. And so this is the interesting part, which I don't tell that much. I'm praying to be downsized. Please give me a package. They downsized me,
Hmm.
and they give me the option to leave, and I don't leave because I'm terrified.
Oh,
So I
wow.
think that's what happens to a lot of people.
Yes.
You know, we are
I work with a lot of those people. So yes, that's what
we are
happens.
programmed. We're
And you
programmed.
must have a job, and that no matter how miserable you are, especially for Black women, having a job, you know what I mean? Having the degree, having a job. A good friend of mine, Stephanie Perry, who I adore, often says Black excellence is killing Black women. And we attach our self-worth so much to what we do and not who we are, right? Which is not what you do. Right. And so a lot of us spend a great amount of our most very important years of our lives not knowing who we are because we tie it to what we do. And we know what we're doing is not making us happy. Right. But we still keep doing it. You know, I, on the other hand, was never, you know, I rarely waited for anyone to offer me a check. I made them give me a check. But I was in a unique position to kind of know things that other people that I'm trying to teach other people now. Right. So that I could do it. But yes, I know what that's like. Someone offers you a set and you're still like, you know, I need to have this job to make myself feel like I'm, you know, that I belong. I need to have this job. You know what I mean? And that's a big leap to realizing that, you know, being unemployable which is what I call it, is actually a very, very good thing. Right?
That's what happened to me.
People put a negative connotation on it. So we're so afraid of the idea of working for ourselves and being on our own. We think we need to have an employer.
That's what happened to me. So I had done all of this. I was really clear about what I wanted to do. I'm praying to be downsized.
And then it comes and you're like,
and I'm like, oh my God. Well, this is what happened, which is related a little bit to your work, which is so funny. So what happened was, so then I'm sitting there, you know, and it was in the time that was like the beginning of downsizing. I mean, it was a long time ago. Right. So we're talking 1994, right? So they gave it like a year's salary. Come on. I prayed. I said, God,
that's good. That's a good. Yeah.
That's something I don't think that happens anymore.
Yeah.
I said,
it happens, but not as often. It happens, but you got to fight for it now.
Yeah, if they give me a year, I'll go. Give me a year, I'll go. It was like, it must have been a week later. Bang. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? So I didn't take it. And then a couple of weeks later, they said, okay, you don't have a choice anymore. Your job is being eliminated. And by the way, now you're getting 3 months.
Oh,
right. So that's when I fought, actually. I did all the things, because I was in human resources too. It wasn't human resources, it was occupational health, but I knew enough, right? And so
it's like, how do you offer me a year and then 3 months later talk about
right. So I went through all that process. But anyways, that's when I became a coach. I didn't call myself a coach for a long time. I called myself a consultant, a career transition consultant, and I worked with people who needed to discover who they truly were. I did that for years until I decided to finally take coach training.
This is really amazing, because you have all this training already. You had the training, the degrees, and yet you still felt like, you know, it's funny because I am not a coach, and I do not consider myself to be a coach, even though people tell me that I am, but I don't. I'm a consultant, and I give people advice, and I tell them how to do specific things relevant to HR. But a lot of times I meet people who I say to, I think you need a coach, right? Or I think you need a therapist, or I think you need both of these things, because, you know, I meet a lot of women, Black women, who have been really damaged by being in the workplaces that they're in, that they almost have no fight left by the time I get to them, right? They're just kind of like, this thing is happening to me, and I don't know what to do. Even they've offered me this thing, and, you know, I just think I'm going to or I'm just going to quit because it's just so horrible. And they have nothing left. And they're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then they're telling me all these, you know, I have doctors and lawyers and, you know, people who have all this training, but they've been beaten up so much that they don't have any fight left. And I'm like, you know, I don't know how to get you there, but I think you need someone to help you to get there. But because I'm always like, why aren't you angrier? Because I'm big mad on your behalf, right? After you tell me all these things. And a lot of times they'll be like, well, now I feel like I can do it after talking to me. because I'm like, you need to be pissed about what this employer is doing to you. It's not okay for them to do this to you. But I think a lot of us feel so much like, especially in the United States, and I'm sure there's some of this in Canada as well, you're programmed to be a second-class citizen. You don't realize
absolutely,
but you're programmed to be it and to accept it in every aspect of your life, right? Especially at work. You keep your head down, you do what they say, and even when you do that, they still have a problem with you, and you just take it, right? And
you're kind of programmed to be invisible and to
especially our generation and the generation before us. So it's like the idea of saying no to things and that I'm not going to accept this is not a concept that comes to people easily. And that's why I think having a coach to even help you recognize that some of these things are not acceptable and that you actually have the power to change it, right? And that you have career options and that you have choices of things that you could be doing otherwise is very helpful, because for those of us who have actually gotten ourselves out of the matrix, as I call it, it seems obvious, right? But for people who are still in it, it's not obvious at all, right?
Yeah, it's multi-generational. This is like multi-generational programming. And the way I call it, you call it the matrix, I call it pirate world. A world that was made for pirates, well, created by pirates and made for pirates. And in the corporate environment, I found myself in pirate world. And that's where the only thing that's important is money and acquiring more money and power over
acquiring more things and acquiring things, money, which requires money. Yeah.
And if you are somebody, you're a professional Black woman who actually dares to decide to leave, you are a disruptor. You're a disruptor. There is no question. And, we have different personalities. So my personality is not like yours. You're really direct. My personality is a little less, but I'm still a disruptor. I still decided to leave. It took a long time. So I get it. Yeah. It takes time.
Hard. No, it's really hard. It's
really hard. And it takes it's almost reprogramming your brain, and also the way you make a living and the way you live. It actually gives you back control over your life. It's not nirvana, but there's some of us, the people that I work with anyways, are people who know deep in their gut that they are called to do something, and it's not what they're doing.
Right.
And if they continue doing it, it'll
kill you. It'll kill you. And I'm not talking in just in a figurative sense. I'm like, literally, right? And so, it's true. And it's not nirvana. I have a whole other series where I talk to people about what it's like to be self-employed, to be unemployable, what it is like, because I think it's important for people to understand what the realities of it is. But I also think it's the best thing that I ever did in my life, right? Because now I'm happy when I'm talking to people and I'm working, but it doesn't feel like work, right? Because I'm doing the thing that I know now I should have been doing a long time ago. That is very easy for me to do, that I enjoy doing, right? And most people, they'll never get to do that because they don't know that's even an option. A lot of us don't even recognize it as an option because we've been taught, you go to school, you get a degree, and you get a job working for somebody. And if you're lucky, they give you 3 weeks off a year to go on vacation. And then you go buy a house and put yourself in a whole bunch of debt. And then you're stuck, right? That's what you're taught in the United States, because the system requires that you do this for it to survive. And so you're programmed that you must acquire all these things that they constantly push in your face and tell you that you need in order for you to be a valuable person in society, that you have to buy the house, the car, the bag, the shoes, the this, the that, right? And it's almost like a numbing agent so that you don't see the actual realities of your second-class citizenship, of the way that you're being screwed on a regular basis by so many different systems that are built around this thing, right? And so I think that most people never realize, or until you're older and you're in it for a while, right? And even then people are like, then they feel stuck and they can't get out. So then what's worse is realizing that you're in this system, but you don't know how to get out of it, right? And so I think the work that you do and other coaches do that help people realize that, in fact, if you want to do something else, you can.
And I think
you
it
can
starts
use
very
it.
much.
It's very, very important. Why would you say, in your opinion, that being a Black woman as a coach in this space is important? Because I feel like you've talked a bit about why the coaching that you do is important, but why do you think you being a Black woman as a coach is important to what you do?
Well, I think that the thing that's a given with a Black woman is I've done this. You don't have to explain what's going on to me. I mean, you explain it and from your perspective and all that kind of thing, but it's not like I'm going to say to you, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Mm-hmm. And are you sure that it's really that, which is what you get, and not that it's you?
Exactly.
If
So
you
that
do
it's like
something right, that it'll be okay.
I know. I mean, I know. I don't have to say no. Well, are you sure you were sent up north because you were the best person for the job? Is that why they sent you away from that office? So it's that's where I'm aware of the multi-generational programming. I've had to deal with it. Mm-hmm. I've had to see it, and I also know that there's a lot of, well, there's anger and pain that comes along with this, and that so many Black women have repressed all of that just to be strong. So there's so many Black women who are working so hard, and they're like on a heart monitor, a high blood pressure medication. And so it's really, really significant that I think that some of us are blazing a new trail. That's what I think this is all about. I think that there are some of us that are blazing a new trail. And when one does it and the next one and the next one, that helps. And so being a Black woman as a coach, I'm doing that. Yeah. You know, I think that in part the coaching industry itself was created, and this is, you know, was created to help white women feel better about the system they're stuck in. Mm-hmm. Well, that's why a lot of Black women aren't getting coaching. Yep. We don't want to feel better about the system we're stuck in. Mm-hmm. We want to change the system.
We want the system to change.
Yeah. And we want the system to change. And so that's where Black life coaches come in. Yeah. It's like, we're aware of that. We're aware of the whole thing. We're not just sitting in it saying, well, we're going to help you feel better. We're going to help you create the life you really want. And
that's the difference. And I think that it's funny you talk about life coaching, because I'm actually attending this virtual thing about the state of life coaching. I'm not a life coach and I have no aspirations, but there are a lot of people who are hiring life coaches. And I have a concern about that, because I'm like, a lot of people are hiring life coaches and I don't think they really understand what life coaches do. Right? And they don't understand the difference between a life coach and a therapist. They don't understand what they should be looking for in a life coach, right? There's a lot of debate about whether or not, you know, certification versus non-certification. I have my own personal opinions about it, but I'm more interested in just educating people so that they ask the right questions so they can decide, right? Mm-hmm. Because in the US, this, you know, coaching is completely unregulated. So anyone can say they're a coach. And I feel like the coaching industry in general, and life coaching specifically, is changing rapidly, because now people are also seeing it not just as a way to get white women to feel better, which is still the primary purpose of it. And now larger people in general, because, you know, society is such a mess, even more people are like trying to figure a lot of things out, especially now. But then people are seeing it as a huge way to make money, right? Because in the US, everything is about making
commodity,
right?
Commodity.
And now it's being hugely monetized, and people are getting exploited, both people who want to be coaches as well as people who want to receive coaching, because people are seeing it as a huge profit revenue generator for themselves, right? And so it puts the consumer specifically, which is who I'm most interested in, and Black women as consumers, in a difficult position, because they have to really understand what to look for, which is why I'm really interested in talking to people like you, because I want people to have access to people who can help them. I know, you know, there are people that you can go out and hire who are not just going to be, you know, they have no training, they have no certification, they have no experience doing any of this stuff, but they're saying, I'm a life coach, right? Or I'm a mindset coach, or all kinds of things that I see people calling themselves. And it's very confusing for the average person, because they don't know. I'm a lawyer, so I research everything and I question everything, right? Because
right.
so we're taught to question everything, for better or for worse. But the average person isn't going to think that way, and they're already traumatized and they're looking for something, right? And so my question to you is, like, especially as a life coach, what would you tell someone they should be looking for? What are the qualities they should be looking for in a life coach to make sure that they are making the right choice in terms of what their needs are?
Yeah. So first of all, I think there is a background of education and qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a background because, when I decided I wanted to work with people around this, I decided to go to see a professor in psychology and a professor in education.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to them both, I am actually concerned that if I do this work, I'm stepping into people's psyche and I do not want to cause harm.
Right.
And the professor of education said to me, come to my class. And the professor of psychology didn't say anything worthwhile. But the professor of education who does counseling psychology, but basically it's in the educational faculty, he said, come to my class. And that's when I started doing a graduate work in career development. Mm-hmm. And so what I would suggest is that people have background in counseling, career development. They're not necessarily a therapist. Mm-hmm. But they've done advanced training in the human sciences,
right?
Advanced training in the human sciences, and then some specialty training in whatever it is they're specialized in doing. So that's the background. Some coach certifications, great. Some others, I would say a coach certification on top of your own background is fine. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that's really important is a fit. The right fit with the individual so that you really believe it. Like, I'll just give you an example. When I was pregnant, I had a difficult pregnancy years ago. Mm-hmm. And I had a doctor, and the doctor, every time I saw her, the OBGYN, I felt nervous. I felt anxious. And I was like, oh, I can't go through a high risk pregnancy with an anxious doctor. Mm-hmm. And so I changed doctors, and I decided I was just going to follow how it felt. I changed doctors. This time it was a man. Mm-hmm. He ended up being he was the head of obstetrics, actually, Egyptian. I remember this. And he was amazing and just a soothing presence. And I always remember that, because what you want to be able to connect with somebody. So I would suggest you have an initial conversation with somebody, where you ask questions, you ask about their background, you ask about their approach, you ask about what they require and they cost. And so you start to trust your gut, because I think there's it's a personal relationship. Mm-hmm. You have to respect and trust. You're going to be opening up parts of yourself that you may not otherwise to other people. Yes. You've got to feel safe. Mm-hmm. The criteria for success for any relationship is whether or not the client feels safe.
Right.
And so that's what you have to be looking at.
And there is some aspects of, as you said, getting into someone's psyche. You are. I mean, because as someone who has been coached, and I have a coach now, and I had a really great coach before, who's still a part of my life, so I still call her once in a while. But there are things that you get into. You have to, in order for them to help you move forward to what it is that you're saying you're trying to achieve. And I remember saying to her, sometimes I feel like you're shrinking me. And she would laugh, right? But because you had to, but I've always felt like she knew where the bright line was, right? And that was because she was trained, she had experience, she was certified, and so on. And so that, to me, especially when people are getting into aspects of your life and you're trying to engage in changing your life in some way, right? It's important for someone to have that demonstrated experience that you talked about, so that they don't cause harm to you, because they're getting into parts of your life.
Absolutely.
As you said, right? They have to, in order to be able to help you, especially when you're talking about changing your life in a significant way, which is what people go to life coaches for, right? And and a lot of times it's your mind. Yeah. Because that's what I say to clients. It's a client the other day, I can't help you get to the place in your mind where you believe you deserve this. I can just tell you that you do, right? But you need to talk to someone to figure out why. You know what I mean? You're stuck in the way that you are, right? But I can't help unstick you because that's not what I do, right? But I feel like you need to talk to someone. And what I worry about is that there are people who don't know where the line is, right? And that, as you said, can be very problematic if you don't have the training and you haven't bothered to do that, or you just do the certificate thing, and
you have to have a background.
You have to have some kind of
you have to have a background. And even in that, when you're dealing with career, you're not dealing just with career. So it's so interesting because career is a door, right? It's a doorway. And one of the reasons that I wanted to coach was I knew that there were people that would not get service if they had to go to a therapist because nothing's wrong with you. You're not sick. You're not ill. You can't say that. You just know that you have a divine discontent. And what is that about? To me, that's about a calling from the soul. That is, your soul is telling you something's wrong. And so what I find is when people come to the coaching relationship, the volcano has erupted. That's my diagram. The volcano's erupted in their lives. It's like, I can't do it anymore.
Something always happens. Something always happens that gets you to see that you have to change something.
Yeah, something happens. So people are not, rational. They're emotional and distressed and angry and all kinds of emotion. As a coach, a competent coach, you have to be able to hold that and just hold it for that person and help that person to unravel and decode what's really going on.
Yep. What kind of person would you say should hire you as their coach, considering what you do?
Yeah. So for me, the people that should hire me as their coach, they're people who have a divine discontent with their work, but they're also those people who know that they were meant to help, heal, guide, mentor, teach people. They know they were meant for something. They're not doing it. They're in a profession that they're afraid to leave. Those are the people. They're stuck. And they may have been kind of invisible in their own workplace. Or they have been working really hard trying to prove how great they are and burning themselves out.
Yeah.
So, the people I work with they know there's something more. They don't know how to get there from where they are now.
Okay.
And some of them want to get trained.
So they have a recognition at least that something is not what they want it to be.
Absolutely.
Because I think what you said is very true, that usually what triggers it is something happens in your life that makes you realize that you already know you're not doing the thing that you want to do, but makes you see the urgency of doing. So for me, it was when my mother died. For other people, it's something else, right? But it's always something that happens and makes you stop and think, what am I doing with my life, right? Am I doing what I really should be doing with my life? And that's why it usually doesn't happen until people are older, because the rest of the time you've just been in the thing with your head down, running on what I call the hamster wheel. And you don't have time to realize until something happens that stops you, right? And makes you pause and think about like what is going on with you. So what are you up to right now that you would like my viewers to know about in terms of your work? And
there's two things. There's the Black Life Coach Sisterhood, which it's not open yet, but there's a wait list up for that, which is going to be a group, and it's not just for life coaches. It's for professional women who could be consultants or coaches or teachers or healers or mentors or have their own, but they're creating world-changing work and want to be part of a small group of Black women who are really moving into the fullness of their own calling and supporting each other. So that's opening soon.
Well, that sounds cool.
Yeah, I have a wait list up for that. I'm really, really excited about that. I think that one of the volcanoes for me is like when you said the trigger is COVID. COVID's a huge trigger.
Oh yes. COVID has made many, many people stop in their tracks. And, employers are losing their shit all over America because people are just not having it anymore. They're just not. After sitting in a house for a year plus, and people have had time to really think about their life and work and their family and what's important and what's not important. And they're just not having it. And I'm thrilled, especially Black people and Black women specifically. Like, I am just not about dealing with this foolishness anymore. And I want to do whatever it is, whether it's start my own business, whether I want to move abroad, because a lot of people who speak to me talk to me about that as well, because I moved abroad. But whatever it is, they're like, I want to do that thing and I want to do it now. And if I'm going to work for you, you have to be able to accommodate the other parts of me as well. And so it's very interesting to watch it all unfold from afar, because, you know, I don't live in the US, so I get to be an observer. And I just am like, this is hilarious, you know, because there's like, what's happening? And I'm like, well, people had time to think about all this foolishness, and you can't put the genie back in the bottle. The horse is out of the barn now, and it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah.
You know, because we as Black women are just not having it. And I love it. We're just not having it, you know? And, you know, the world and capitalism is trying to go back to to what they like. They're like, okay, George Floyd has been dead for a year now. You know, all the Black people, y'all need to stop complaining and come back into the plantation and be quiet. And Black people are like, no, don't think so. And the workforce as a whole is like, no. And so it's really interesting to watch it, but it's wonderful to watch it at the same time.
It is.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I'm doing. And the other thing is the Soul's Calling Coach and Facilitator training, which is not open yet. Again, I mean, I've been doing that for about 5 years, but I'm encouraging people who want to get trained to do the work to assist people to see themselves and do what they were born to do in the world, to take a look at it. So that training is another thing that I'm doing too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, yeah, those are two things.
So what, this is my last question. What would you say is the important thing that you've learned about yourself through coaching others?
Well, you know, when I coach somebody, every single time I coach, and I tell this to the people who I train too, I learn something every single time I coach somebody. So they may be dealing with an issue, but when they're dealing with an issue, I always think, okay, that's a message for me. What I've learned is how connected we are. We are so connected. So the coaching that I give helps somebody and it heals me. And I think that that's what happens. It's like we give our genius, and in the giving,
you receive something as well.
It heals who we are, and we all sort of rise together. So I just know that I continue to do my own work. This is a lifetime project. We are all lifetime projects. We are all on this journey for a lifetime, and we continue to learn, to do our own work, to see where we're blocked, to see where our programming is in the way, to find our light, to shine it, and do what we were here to do and not what we're programmed to do.
Bev, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I knew it would be a great conversation, and it was. I will make sure that I get your information so people know how to find you and reach out to you. And I plan to stay in touch with you, so we'll definitely talk again. But thank you so much for participating in Conversations with Black Women Who Coach.
Thank you so much. It was fantastic.